Welcome to the R.Y.S.E Movement podcast, a place where men just like you learn to raise your standards everywhere. So sit back, grab a pen and a pad, and let's get to work.
Welcome to another episode of the R.Y.S.E Movement podcast. I'm founder Dave Karastesi, and in this episode, I'm going to give you guys the exact framework that I used with all of my men to be able to help transform their lives and raise your standards everywhere. So specifically in this context, we're going to be talking about health and fitness for the next month. I've been a personal trainer for over 11 years now. I've competed in bodybuilding, I've done powerlifting training. Now I'm obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and I've also done Muay Thai and a couple of other different martial arts as well. Fitness and body movement is one of my greatest life's passions. I love the pursuit of excellence in and around human movement. So I'm going to give you guys the framework that I use and that I give to all of my clients as well. Also, it's the exact same thing that's inside of the R.Y.S.E Method that transforms your life very simply. Okay. One thing that I love is doing things using the KISS principle. Keep it stupidly simple. There's enough convoluted bullshit out there in the industry to make people kind of use the white lab coat analogy where they see someone on this platform, whatever platform it is, of authority. You know, they've got lab coat syndrome and they put these people on a pedestal and they go, oh my God, this person with all these followers knows exactly what they need to do. And they're talking about autophagy and ketones and blah, blah, blah. No, what they're trying to do is use big jargony terms to make you confused so that you go, I'm going to buy that thing. So let's cancel that shit out and let's get back to basics because basics work, okay? The framework is 6 steps and it is super, super simple. When it comes to health and fitness, it's the exact same way that you set goals for anything else. You're going to write a SMART objective. So a SMART objective is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Then afterwards, I'd like to add a little caveat. With this caveat, you're going to write a paragraph that is written in the present tense, and it's all about feeling into your emotions and feeling what that goal means to you. I want you to use some nice colorful adjectives inside describing how that thing means to you. Everyone's health and fitness goals are completely different. Yours have to be unique for you. So if you notice inside of the SMART objective, the relevant needs to be relevant for you. It's not your wife's goal, it's not your kid's goal, it's your goal. You need to make sure that this is something that is meaningful to you, that is relevant to you, and that you are going to actually do it. Don't say, oh, I'm going to lose weight because my doctor told me to. No, find some meaning inside of yourself because you know that you have the potential inside of yourself, because you want to be around for your kids and grandkids or whatever it is. So let's dive into the framework. Step 1, you have to evaluate this on paper. So like I said in the intro of the video of this podcast, get a pen and pad ready. Every time that you hear anything come out of my face, I want you to get a pen and pad ready to take notes so that you can put steps into action. So step 1, evaluate on paper. Where are you currently at? What are your current results? Write down all of the ways that are working or not working. Everything that is happening right now is happening for a reason because it's your life. So write down all of your results, whether you're fit and active, whether you are not so fit, not so active, you got some disease, maybe you got some illnesses, maybe you got some injuries going on and you're far from the definition of healthy. It doesn't really matter because this is a starting point. The main thing here is we do the RYSE. We raise your standards everywhere. Okay, so let's write down where are you currently at. Once you've got everything down, you've evaluated what your health and fitness goals are or what your health and fitness results are currently, you need to basically have peace with it. What's done is done. You can't do anything about the past because what you've done in the past has gotten you to this point right now, and that's okay. However, if you want to do something about it in the future, this is what you're here to do, right? So we're going to move on to step number 2. Where do you want to be? Now, this is the time and place where you write down your SMART objective. You write down all of the things that you wish to change and just how you plan on changing it. So talking about our SMART objective, it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. Specific. What are the specifics of what you want? It's okay to want things. It's okay to have desire. If anything, it's like I said in the last podcast, talking about taking my bow to full draw and aiming at something versus not aiming at something. When you aim at something, you know where you're headed, you know how you can course correct, and you know what your performance markers are to be able to move towards that goal. However, if you take my bow behind me, you take that bow and you aim it at nothing, like I said, that bow and arrow is going to fire that thing at about 300 feet per second, and it's going to be stopped in something. Whether that's a tree, a target, a kid, a dog, that's determined by you. So if you're not aiming at something in your life, what are you aiming at? What are your measurements to know that you've gotten there? What are your measurements to know that you're on track? To maybe if you've deviated, what are you going to do then? How do you have anything that is an inbuilt mechanism to say, oh, shit, I've course corrected. I need to pull myself back on track. That's why I emphasize so strongly that you need to have a guiding North Star. You need to know which way you're heading so that you can head towards it, because otherwise you're just going to mosey about in life, and doing that sucks. So evaluate where you want to be. You need to know where you came from to now and where you're headed in the future. If you don't, like I said, you're not going to know where to direct yourself. And then onto the measurement part. If you don't know where you're going, how the hell can you measure its effectiveness? It's like the definition of insanity from Einstein, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. How many times have you tried a health kickstart and done a diet or a challenge or something like that, and you fall off the wagon and you get back into the habits of life, and whatever happens, and you end up worse than where you started, or you end up at least where you started? It happens so many times. How can you measure the effectiveness of it to be able to move forward and know that you're moving in the right direction? You need to have inbuilt feedback mechanisms to make sure that it's effective. Step number 3, what resources and behaviors do you need to call upon? This step, in my opinion, is probably the second most important outside of knowing exactly where you want to go and how you're going to do it. When it comes to the resources and behaviors, most people act unresourceful. Everyone that has access, especially to this podcast here, to technology, you have all the resources you need to do absolutely anything you ever want to do in your life. If you're low socioeconomic and you want to break out of that, you can do that. You can do that through Google, YouTube. There's a bunch of free courses out there, cheap courses. You can get mentorships. You can be a part of groups. Like, there is that much resource available to you right now in this information age to do, be, and have and experience absolutely anything in your life. So what resources do you need to call upon to be resourceful? Also, what behaviors do you need to start employing? What level of discipline can you bring to the table? Because one thing that I love talking about is discipline. I'm extremely disciplined, and I love to quote Jocko Willink here from one of his books that he talks about discipline equals freedom. That is so damn true. The more discipline that you can bring to your life, the more freedom you will offer yourself in the future. Now, you can also go too carried away, as he talks about. You can create so much discipline, so much rigidity that your life ends up very shallow and restrictive and having no fun whatsoever. So what I said at the start of this, talking about discipline, you need to figure out what level of discipline you're comfortable with, and your family is comfortable with, and your kids are comfortable with, and your work schedule and everything like that. Perhaps you're not like me and you don't run a personal training business where you can train jiu-jitsu and weightlifting like 8-9 times a week. Like, that was my current last couple of weeks, and I love it. I absolutely thrive in it. That's probably not you guys, but I've set my life up over 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, to be able to have this lifestyle where I can work with those who I want to work with, where I wake up when I want to wake up. Lucky I'm an early morning person. I wake up and love coffee, so I can get off my day started early. But like, I can train when I want to train. And the main non-negotiable I set when I had my first daughter was I put her to bed every night. And I have done so unless she stayed at a friend's place or if she stayed at a relative's place. I have put her to bed every single night for the last 9.5 years of her life. It's a standard that I've set for myself. Like I said, raise your standards everywhere. So, what resources and behaviors do you need to use? When it comes to health and fitness, what behaviors of those that have been there and done that before have they used? What behaviors have they used to ensure their success? What behaviors do they do inside of their routines to make sure that they're successful? To make sure that it becomes a non-negotiable, to make sure that they don't even have to think about training, about eating well, about sleeping well, about cutting down on alcohol, about all these healthy habits and routines inside of their behaviors. What do they have to do? Because success leaves clues. Like, this bookshelf behind me here of all this personal development stuff, everything inside of here is about standards. It's about the standards you uphold yourself to, and it's about elevating your standards if you want to do the whole self-help movement sort of thing. Everything around improving is raising your standards first. I'm not going to get into the detailed psychology of it because I don't want to put jargon behind anything, but the reason for it is it's archetypal inside of us. If life isn't going the way that you want, you need to archetypally step into your power around manifestation, around standards, around requirements. So once you do that, that's basically every single personal development book covered. That's it. So what resources and behaviors do you need to call upon, and how are you going to do it? Step number 4, plan out your week. Set alarms and reminders. So when you plan out your week, you're starting with the end in mind. The way that I like to describe starting with the end in mind is, here we are on Monday when I'm filming this, and I already know in my mind just how many training sessions I'm going to do, how many jiu-jitsu, how many weightlifting, if I'm going to go for a bit of a self-care walk and listen to some podcasts or meditation music or something like that. I know when I'm going to stretch. I know what I'm going to do specifically. I have a training plan set out for me. I know every single jiu-jitsu session that I know what I'm going to specifically work on inside of each. I know the ins and outs of my training schedule. I also know the ins and outs of my fiance's training schedule. I know what my kids need to do for their karate lessons and their extracurriculars. I know when I need to cook dinner, when I need to drop the kids off, pick them up, so on and so forth. I have structured my entire week. I know all of my training sessions with my clients. I know all of my coaching sessions with my clients. My week is set from Sunday night through the next week, and I know what my outcomes need to be. So when you start with the end in mind and you plan your week, that is your non-negotiable, okay? If you're raising your hand here metaphorically saying, oh, Dave, what about life when it gets in the way? That's the next step. Don't stress about that. Set your alarms and reminders to make sure that you're on track. When you start with the end in mind and you're planning out your week and you've got all your appointments scheduled into your calendar, you know exactly how it's going to work for you. So do it. So do it, get it done. All you need to do is make sure you schedule everything, make sure you take into account all your different trip times that need to go into it, and any extracurricular thing that you need to worry about goes inside of your calendar. It has alarm set and reminders set as well, especially if you're starting a new habit. If this doesn't come naturally to you and you're not a fit and healthy individual to begin with, and you think of exercise as a chore, you're going to need reminders constantly, because motivation comes and goes. It's like the tides. It comes in, it goes out, and more often than not, it's going to be out. I made a decision a long time ago. My non-negotiables for training, I minimum train 5 times a week. 10 times a week would be nice. My minimum non-negotiable for training every single week is 5 times a week. If I don't get that, my mental health goes out the window and I start to become really anxious. I start to get neurotic. I get really snippy, and I'm just not okay inside of my mind and my body. So my non-negotiables, my standards that I set early on, happen regardless of what happens. If I don't train, and this came from an old mentor of mine, Anne-Marie Lassier. She was an amazing female bodybuilder, the Amazonian she was. She told me that if you don't train, your clients don't train. And she said this to me in the end of 2011. And it just stuck with me ever since, because if I don't worry about me, if I don't set a high standard for myself for the level of training, diet, sleep, recovery, everything else, then my clients don't get to, because I need to look after me, look after number one, to be able to look after everyone else. Same thing comes with my family. If I don't train properly, my family is going to be affected. If I don't train properly, I get snippy with my kids, and I hate being snippy with my kids because I got screamed at as a kid and, belted and sent to my room and all that sort of stuff. So I have a different standard of communication when it comes to with my family, because they know that dad needs to train. If dad says he's going to train, he goes to train. One of my favorite, caveats, with this is coming into step number 5. If I ever utter the words, I don't want to train, or I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to do whatever in front of my kids, I immediately stop what I'm doing and go, cool kids, I'll see you later, I'm going to the gym. I go and train straight away. I don't want my kids to grow up hearing their dad has outs when it comes to physical exercise, just because the rest of my family is obese, if not morbidly obese. I just can't do it. If I didn't do all the things that I did and train 5 times a week, eat healthy, all the rest of it, I would be severely overweight. In fact, a couple of years ago, and I'll put up a photo here, which is really hard for me to put up, I was 130 something kilos. I was like 25% body fat, aches and pains everywhere. Like my cholesterol was through the roof, my blood pressure was through the roof. I was not well. And that came from the back end of getting a nice big back injury after doing powerlifting in 2017. But anyway, that's a little caveat. So I've been unfit and unhealthy. So if I don't do all these things, I'll end up back at that position where I was overweight, obese, and probably worse. So I have to set that standard, and I have to show my kids the standard because they have the same genetics as me and the same genetics as our family. So we need to do something about that. So step number 5, know your contingency plans for life. You're going to fail. You're human, and it's okay. What is not okay is quitting when you've had a down day, is quitting when you've gotten beaten at training, gotten smashed at jiu-jitsu, gotten copped a beating at Muay Thai training. It's not okay to stop then. You can't stop when you've done a poor session. You can't stop when the chips are down and your back's against the wall and you want to quit. You have to build some fucking resilience. The amount of men that I've talked to that have no backbone whatsoever because life has just beaten them over and over and over again, and they can't, you put them into this vulnerable position where you're trying to get them to be called forward and be strong and courageous, and they fucking cower because life has just kicked their dick in too many times. You need to be able to build a backbone. Life is going to fuck up your plans. Life is going to it's going to look at your plans as so perfectly made and laugh at it as it crumples them up and says, I don't give a shit about this. Kids are going to have things happen. They're going to get sick at school. They're going to vomit. They're going to break their arm. God forbid. God forbid. There's things that are going to happen and you're going to have to pick up the slack. You're a man. That's what we do. We have to help pick up the slack of our family and of those around us. So if you miss a training plan, there's plenty of other time in the day. Do a workout at home when everyone else goes to bed. Have a contingency set so that you can still get after it regardless of whatever your non-negotiables are. If you say 4 training sessions a week, you do 4 training sessions a week, even if there's loved ones around you that are sick or whatever's going on. These are your non-negotiables because you're a man of high standards and you want to be able to raise your standards everywhere so that you continue to do the thing necessary that makes you happy. Everything is about creating your full utmost potential. And like I said previously, your potential is limitless. Hearing that, knowing that you have limitless potential and knowing about your contingency plans, about where you're going, just feel what that feels like inside of you to know how much potential you have. Where could you go from here? Whatever you've evaluated in step 1 and 2 versus where you are now versus where you want to be, I want you to think a little bit further. I want you to think a little bit higher. I want you to raise your standards that little bit further and say, I can do more than what I think I can do. And then just get put to action. So step number 6 is probably the third most important out of this hierarchy. And it's about taking action. It's about moving hell and high water to be able to go and do. Like I said in the previous one about contingencies, you have a set standard of minimum training sessions, of the way that you eat, the way that you sleep, water, all the rest of it, and you get to work. You take so much damn action that it leaves ripples and wakes behind you and everyone else can take notice of what you're doing because you're out there and you're moving, you're shaking. You're doing the thing necessary to be able to make sure that you are moving your life and your health into a positive direction. You are taking back control and responsibility of everything that happens inside of your body, inside of your mind, inside of your health and your wellness. You can do this because you set your mind to it and you take action on it. Relentless action. You do, you move, you create, you don't stop, ever. The only time that you ever stop is you pause for a bit of self-care and maybe for a vacation. Maybe there's some things that are absolutely non-negotiables outside of your health and fitness that take you away from it. And they're the only times that you ever stop. This is a lifelong pursuit because when it comes to health and fitness and raising your standards everywhere, specifically with health and fitness, it's about longevity. Everything that we do, regardless if you're a bodybuilder, if you're a track star, a swimmer, a cyclist, a marathon runner, regardless, everything that we do, yeah, it might be to look good and feel great and have better sex and to do all these other things, but ultimately it's for longevity. I have a goal in my mind that I want to be 110 years old and see 5 generations below me. I want to be able to be with my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, so on and so forth, all the way down the line, because I never got to have a massive family growing up. My family were not up to scratch. They just weren't. It is what it is. And when it came to family gatherings, it was just bickering, it was horrible, there was no closeness. And in Hungarian, we've got this saying that's called shoemarking. It's like bullshitting. They all just shoemarked. and I absolutely hated it. I wanted to develop this closeness and love and intimacy with my family that I never got. So my goal, my huge lifelong goal, is to be able to have 5 generations below me where I can be able to experience so much love and so much diversity and just experience so much. That's what I'm here for. That's why I train so hard. That's why I do what I do, to be able to make sure that I have the standards so high that anything that any of my kids, grandkids, or anything can come to me. I'm starting to get emotional. Anyone can come to me and say, "Hey, Pop, can you help me?" And I can give them some wisdom to be able to go, "Cool, here's what I did, here's what I learned, here's this book, here's this resource, whatever it is that you need, now go and learn and do." That's what I set up for my life. That's what I want ultimately in my life. So I want you to re-listen to these parts a few times, go through the 6 steps, and move forward. Take so much action that you can almost not stop. You can almost not pause. It feels inauthentic if you try to do anything other than what you have to do, because you must. So that's it for another episode. We're going to be diving in a little bit more detail over the next few weeks, over the next month, to be able to extrapolate all about raising your standards with health and fitness. Okay? Thank you so much for being here. Until the next one, much love and take care.
Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us out. Until next time, take care and much love.